if we're going to go big, I want the playbook. I don't have to figure it out.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Real Estate Path. I'm your host, Jim Lee. This show is about the real journey, not some highlight reel like you see on Instagram. Because success isn't built on luck or fancy suits. It is built on filled offers, blown budgets, and the guts to keep going when everyone else taps out. Whether you are a seasoned pro or a beginner, this show, we're about to deep dive the wins, the loss, and the lessons behind each real estate journey. Today, I have a very special guest with me, David. Welcome to the show.
Jim, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. David, can you tell us a little bit about who were you before real estate invested?
All right. Well, I was a college student athlete. I had a variety of different jobs, from sales to solving big problems in business analytics and technology. And then one day God said, about 6 years ago, it's time to get into real estate. And I've been interested in real estate for 15 years before that.
What piqued that interest? What inspired you 15 years ago?
Yeah, it was about creating long-term wealth. It was about making a difference in people. It was about delivering a great housing experience for people and creating generational wealth. More than anything.
Okay, and did you get that concept from from family, from books that you read?
So it certainly started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it expanded from there. I read a lot of different books on finance, on investing in the stock market. I traded options for a period of time. We did mutual funds. We listened to Dave Ramsey stuff. So we did all the different financial metrics and all the different options. I went deep and learned from experts. And consistently, over and over and over again, it said real estate, real estate, real estate. Buy assets that generate income. And because the dollar amount is so much bigger, then the deals are bigger, the profits are bigger if you do it right.
In that span of 15 years, what happened there? Why was it so long for you to finally start to begin taking real estate investing more serious? Was it analysis paralysis? Because I know a lot of people go through that. Or was it just a personal thing that you're going through?
It was just more of a situation of God kept closing the doors. And whether it was my wife that was saying, no, let's not do that. Let's be safe. Let's go get a job. I got my MBA. We're making 6 figures, was involved in a turnaround company. I worked for a lot of Fortune 50 and Fortune 500 companies. Come in and solve some really big, complicated problems.
So you were just handcuffed to a corporate job, and then your wife was like, no, you're not doing no real estate investor, you're sticking to this. I think in this show, a lot of people face the same common issue. So how were you able to overcome that?
It all happened in 1 week. How do you know when God is saying, yes, now is the time? I went and visited one of my best buddies, Aaron Davis, out in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's talking about real estate. And then start listening to Bigger Pockets on the 5 or 6 hour drive home. And then randomly, Facebook, I see some random ads about real estate investing. And I think that same week, I got invited kind of randomly to go to it turned out to be a Dean Graziosi free lunch. And I brought my son, James. He was 8 or 9 years old at that time. And so we went to the free lunch. We bought $1,000 thing for another weekend, another $15,000 for another thing. And we started LLC. We did this, we did that. We signed up for coaching and mentorship because I knew there were so many details. And later in that journey, but as I was buying my first house, I called up my coach and said, Coach, what kind of insurance do I get for this house? It's under contract. I'm supposed to close in a couple days. So I called Coach, what kind of insurance do I get? What are the specific things? And the coach said, David, think about a brick wall. Every brick on that brick wall is a different detail that you have to become an expert at. And that's why you have to constantly be engaged. That's where collaboration is so important.
And that's something I talk a lot about on the show, collaboration over competition. And so when you started off this path, getting coached, going to mentorships, what did you get out of them? How has that kind of propelled you to doing what you do now?
Right. So I went into that mentorship coaching program saying, I want to be an investor. I want to own rental property because then you've got passive income, theoretically, and it's going to be that ongoing mailbox money. There were 2 of us that raised our hand when we were in the final big weekend that said, we want to be investors. Everybody else wanted to be wholesalers. The leader and the teacher of that whole weekend thing, they taught on wholesale. So I learned how to comp and how do you run all the formulas with estimating rehab and doing all the different details of go get a mortgage, here's how much it costs, and the whole process end to end. Where do you get materials? Where do you get some of these different things? And then we went and executed. And so we started making offers. We're making a lot of lowball offers, and then one gets accepted. And then that's exciting. And it's also so scary because then there's so many details to then figure out. And so that's why it's so important that we had a coach, that I had somebody that I could turn to, that could walk hand in hand, arm in arm, and off we go. Now, was it easy? No, even with a coach, they point me in the right direction a lot of times. But at the same time, you still got to go through the process. You're still going to make some mistakes because you can't ask the coach everything. So we relied on materials, we relied on gut instinct, we relied on other people in the industry. And we asked a lot of questions, just kept learning and learning and learning.
What would you say would be the most challenging moment for that deal? Because typically, when we talk about getting into our very first real estate deal, a lot of people get either stuck or just make mistake on the first deal and learn by doing. And so what was one of the most challenging thing you had to, go through?
Probably the biggest challenge was figuring out the process and the mortgage. How do we try and get all of our money back so we could rinse and repeat? Later, I learned that we were doing the BRRRR method, but I didn't know that's what it was. But we paid cash. We end up doing delayed financing. And then that way we didn't have to wait for the seasoning period that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require before you refinance. So because we paid cash for that first house, like we paid $87,000, we did about $13,000 worth of renovations. It appraised for $125,000, and then we got all of our money back except for a couple of $1,000 left of the deal, and it was cash flowing a couple $100 a month.
Awesome. And so from that first deal, I'm sure the momentum took off. What did you do next, and how did you, transition from being that group to joining the other West Wing?
Yeah, so we bought our first house in October 2019, second house in December 2019, third house in March, April timeframe. And all of a sudden, it's holy smokes, we've got 3 houses. And we were doing the BRRRR method. Probably the biggest lesson on the second house is I learned that the square footage below ground does not count for the same square footage as ground level and above ground. And I didn't know that you're supposed to discount the below ground stuff 50 to 60% per square foot as what ground level and up. So we did end up having about $50,000 stuck in that second house that we weren't expecting, but it was okay. That one was wild because it took every dollar, every penny. I mean, we were finding change in the couch cushion, like in between the couch cushions, trying to come up with $200,000. I mean, we've never been wealthy, but I've been a very, very heady saver my whole life. So we just liquidate everything we could, not out of IRAs and 401ks and that kind of stuff, but everything else we cashed in to make that second deal work. And then we pulled that money out and did the third deal. And then we partnered up with a few other people. So we worked with PMLs that are just lenders on a deal from private funding. Some of those came from somebody doing a self-directed IRA. Another one, we partnered with some people in New Jersey. And so we bought a duplex and triplex together. And then we bought another duplex. We held those as rentals. We've done flips. We've done college student rentals. Yeah, we ended up starting our own property management company to manage those. Ended up starting our remodel company a couple of years later. We've done a few flips.
That's right.
We just kept taking action.
Yeah. So out of all this type of different deals that we've done, have you ever lost money because I know you say some of the you got money stuck in one deal, but have you ever lost in partnerships or any deal you have?
For sure.
Okay.
Fortunately, it was not on a specific property. It was actually when we started our own remodel company. And I partnered with another crew. We did a couple of deals together, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I partnered together with this crew. They were not a licensed general contractor, but it was a kind of a project manager. We've done a lot of different remodels, highly esteemed in the area. They had a crew of 6 or 7 people. I'm like, great, you guys will handle all the remodels because I just want to focus on buying the properties, throw it over the wall to the remodel crew. And so we're standing up all these different things. And what happened is we didn't do our underwriting appropriately. And it was the project manager that was also overseeing the remodel crews. And they were not accounting for all the little details. And we were paying our crew by the hour, but we were quoting it out by the job. Not just the houses that we were buying, but we were also doing bathrooms, other remodel, like smaller remodel projects for other investors and homeowners. And then this job loses $2,000. This one loses $5,000. This one loses $1,000. This one breaks even. This one lost $10,000. Jim, we lost $202,000 in 6 months. And I'm coaching and training saying, oh, we need more tracking traceability. We need to do it this way and that way. and people were not responsive and they didn't take the action. They said, "Oh, David, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, we've been in the industry for a long time." But after we lost $200,000 in 6 months, everybody has to go. We had to do a complete reset, shut everything down, and get in a couple lawsuits as a result. Not that we didn't pay somebody. My stance is I'm going to pay everybody, but everyone else didn't always have the same perspective. And we weren't doing change orders like we were supposed to. And there was a lot of the handshake kind of deals that then it's tough to then file a lien if you don't have the actual contracts that then support it. So it's really tough.
Yeah. No, I resonate with your story. Like, I come from the same background as you, which, raised very conservatively. All I know is how to save, because I've also lost money through multi-dynamic syndication. I've mentioned it in previous shows. Doesn't sit well with me. It's okay if I lose my own money, but if I lose investors' money, it looks really bad on me, and I want to make sure that I make it up for my investor in some other ways. I often think that, how do I bounce back on that? And that's the question I want to ask you, because you definitely obviously bounce back because you're still doing this industry. You're still thriving in the real estate investing career. And so I wanted to hear what's your triumph story after that.
All right, can I share a couple of the lessons that we learned?
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope this helps all the listeners as well. So, number one, if you are hiring a general contractor, check their license. Go to the actual state licensing board and check their license. Not just, are they currently licensed? What is their license for? Check, have there been complaints? Have a really detailed contract with a very detailed scope of work and the specific milestones that then release the funds. And then you always have to hold some back, typically 10 to 20% off every single draw until the final punch list is done. And so we had a deal about a year ago and we paid the general contractor their final amount before the punch list was done. And they came back and did this much of this much work, but they've been paid. And so then they walked. And then it's been really difficult to try and recover it. They're not coming back. So those are some of the biggest lessons that we're definitely going to do differently in the future.
Definitely set the right expectation, right?
Yes.
That's the most important thing. And I think that's also something that Jamil was talking about in co-living today, that contractors can make or break your business. And oftentimes it's like, it's your dream that they're breaking, and you have to just be on top of this, making sure that you have a solid team and making sure that you're always there to give the attention it needs. So yeah, going back to the story, like, how do you bounce back from that big fall? Because it's tough, and I'm sure your wife probably had some saying in about, hey, you better probably get your corporate job back, I'm guessing. At that point. So, because I go through the same thing too. When I went through my multifamily downturn, syndication downturn, I had those thoughts that popped into my head where, should I go back to my W2 job? Am I in that position where I cannot continue this path forward? But as entrepreneur, we figure things out. That's the beauty of it. So I wanted to hear, how'd you figure your path out?
Yeah. So the triumphs and how do you recover? They're really linked together. So we are fortunate that the market was increasing in a significant way. And so that first house, so we bought for $87,000, then we've got $100,000 in after the remodel. Fast forward, we end up refinancing it and we pulled about another $70,000 out. Not only do we have $0 in it, we've actually have a house with a reasonable mortgage payments that's still cash flowing, and we pulled all this extra cash out. The second house, we pulled $100,000 out as well when we refinanced. The third house, we also pulled 60 or 70,000 out. We need a couple of flips, right? And so we're buying low. We typically have bought on MLS with the houses that are ugly. They've sat there. A couple we bought when they're only on market, a day or a couple days because the sellers priced it too up. Other ones were ugly, or there's water in the basement or the crawl space, or there's this or that it scared everybody else. But because we had experience, because we thought through all the details at a really deep level and really ran our numbers effectively, we weren't just guessing. We were getting actual quotes, and here's actually what the mortgage payment's going to be. Here's what the percentages are. Here's what the actual rent is, right? And so we're running our numbers really effective. And we always wanted to buy larger houses with more bedrooms because the market now is better. And I figured that out before we bought our first house. If I can rent by the bedroom, now we can make a lot more cash flow. And if you rent to college students will pay more than regular long-term renters. If you have more bedrooms or bathrooms, now all of a sudden the value goes up. And if you go on Zillow, you filter by the number of bedrooms, and even for the same square footage, the price goes up. And it adds more value because you can rent it for more because there's more people people that could live in that house. And that's really what also supported us getting into co-living. And that's where we're focused now. We just came out with a course, communitycoliving.com. And so our course teaches the property managers and owner operators exactly how to manage all the day-to-day stuff. Now, to go back just a little bit, it was a year and a half ago that God said co-living is where we need to focus. Like, we've been doing co-living with college student rentals. If we're going to go big, I wanted the playbook. I don't have to figure it out, right? At that point, we'd done our own trial and error and we figured it out and it was working really well. But if we're going to scale at a really big level, and God said we're going to house a lot of people, well, that means we really have to get it dialed in. I couldn't find the playbook. There's no course. There are no systems. Here's exactly how to do it. What I did find is somebody that's lived in community style co-living for 20 years, owned and managed in the last 8-9 years. We partnered together January 1st, 2025. She came in with all the systems, processes, checklists, end to end, from how do you set up the house, the leaks, all the addendums, the household covenants, how do you do chores, all the materials that you stock the house with, the chore wheel, how you encourage the residents to do chores. Do they pay less if they do chores? No, they actually pay the same amount. But because the residents are doing the chores, they love the house more. They take better care of it. A lot of times they'll fix, especially little things, then they're at least more likely to submit a maintenance request. So we know there's something wrong because we are probably going to fix it. And so that just came out a couple weeks ago. We worked on it for a year. And so communitycoliving.com, we go there. We've got free ebooks. We got all the material lists, whether it's the remodel items and the specific light fixtures and doorknobs and all that stuff. Here's the exact silverware and the plates. And I mean, it's everything. The little appliances.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Be sure to check it out. I want to highlight something really quick. You mentioned earlier that you take your son to EVEX. And right now we're actually at HMRB's mastermind called Owner's Club. You're also by your side. So I wanted to ask you, what's your vision for taking your kids with you? And I just find that so cool. It's amazing where, you're able to get your kids to do what you're passionate about. He's also passionate about what you're passionate about.
It didn't always start that way. James and my daughter Molly, they resisted going and doing a lot of work. But sometimes it's part of the family business. And so sometimes they get the choice, and sometimes it's part of being a part of the family. And so, for example, on the first house, I had the kids come and they ripped up the 2-foot by 2-foot industrial carpet squares, of course, off the floor and exposed this beautiful hardwood floor that then later in the remodel was completely refinished. Kids brought their hoverboards. So after they pulled up all the carpet squares, they stacked them up this high and then they rode their hoverboard the rest of the time that we were there. Another day, we took the shutters off the outside of the house and they spread this huge piece of plastic out in the yard and then they spray painted all the shutters.
Yeah.
A different day, I taught my daughter how to caulk. Now, is she the most amazing caulker? No, of course not. She's 11. And then James was 9 years old. But I encouraged her. I'm like, you're going to be this amazing caulking person. Like, you're our caulking person for all of our houses, right? So I kept encouraging, and piece by piece, right? I mean, sometimes it's go pick up the sticks in the yard. It's not a fun job. We need to sweep the house and sweep up the sawdust and the drywall dust and whatever. Sometimes it's, hey, we're going to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever store to pick up materials, and then we're bringing them to the house, and then we're going to stage them out. And that way, when the crew gets there the next day or later that day, it's ready to go for them. And so exposing them to little stuff within reason and giving them the option. So they have to do some things and then they have the option to do others. And piece by piece, then one day I said, James, do you want to go to a real estate conference? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, it's in Montana. I'd love to go to Montana. That sounds great. We're going to be at Jerry Nord Lake House. We're going to go up to Glacier National Park. And when James went and he started being exposed to the community, he started to fall in love with our community. And then we went to an Aspire event. And then we went to Squat Up Summit. And at Squat Up Summit, James really stepped up. He started to see the spark and the attention. So at Squat Up Summit, it was at the end of the third of 4 days. We get back up to the room at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, James, what'd you think? What was your favorite part? He said, Dad, the networking. Dude, do you realize that you're 14 years old? It's all right. You've been engaged. You're not only attending, but you're paying attention. In this huge room, a sea of people. Tomorrow, do you want to go to hang out at the pool or sleep in? And he said, no, Dad. I want to be in the room. And not only in the room, I want to be in the first row. And that next morning, we had a new team meeting. It comes 6:45. He said, Dad, we got to go get in line. And then a couple minutes later, he said, Dad, I'm going to get in line. I'll see you there. And then he calls me up 10 minutes later. Dad, you got to get in line. so we can be first in row. And so I make it there. We run up to the front. We're in the front row. And so I told that to some of our leaders of Owners Club. And they said, actually, we want to give James a scholarship to attend because we want to help create a successor program or a owners club for kids or something like that. We don't know what it looks like.
Oh, look.
It actually,
Look, it's James.
is my buddy James.
To clarify, I got front row. He took it long, and so he was second
That's right. And James has actually done that at most of the events.
every single bit.
And James will be in the front row almost every single time. I'm proud of him.
How many times have I got used?
But James will go and he's outgoing and he engages and he'll talk to other people.
So that's awesome, where you just positive reinforcement, encouragement, and eventually got James to go to the event, kind of explore, give him some exposure. And then you took that exposure and now it's turned into a passion where just absorbing all the knowledge like a sponge, learning faster than ever. And it's amazing to see that he's become God he is today. He's such a sharp kid. He's got to be so successful. He's incredible. Yeah. You should be proud.
I appreciate that, Tara. I don't feel like I did anything really special. At the end of the day, my job as a dad, right? My wife's job as a mom, our job is to give our kids exposure and the opportunity to step up and help them find their passion and where they find their fit. Now, just because we expose somebody to soccer doesn't mean that they're going to be an amazing soccer player. Or it's because you expose them to this or to that, right? And so we put our kids in rec sports from little, and they played a ton of different sports. My daughter ended up finding a love for volleyball. James ended up finding a love for real estate. And then we give them a chance to fail within reason. So we put up some guardrails to keep them, from making it catastrophic or like a really big mistake, but also let them fail a little bit. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We learn that way.
Yeah. Fall in love and trying everything out there, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I love that. Okay. So is there anything else that we haven't touched upon?
Because there was not a course for co-living that's available. There's other challenges with co-living, like how many unrelated people can legally live in your house. So we just came out with this AI agent system, and it goes and pulls all the data for you from the county and the city and the jurisdiction and what's the zoning, and it'll tell you how many unrelated people if can live there. Do you have to be a certain distance from the next closest house? Or do you have to get a license as a boarding house? Does that have to be more than 1,500 feet from the next closest boarding house? If you change the zoning or you call it something different, then you can have more people or you can't. Here's what the market rates are. It's all these different little nuances because co-living on one hand has been around for hundreds of years. On the other hand, is a newer thing that's really taking off across the country. And so our goal is not to make $1 bajillion selling our course. The point is that our systems really, really work if people use it. We're providing at a really low cost because we don't want people to have to go through the same challenges that so many other people have to go through and the failures. So that's also why we provide the material lists, underwriting spreadsheets, and recommendations on mortgage companies and hard money lenders, and all these different pieces to help people get across those hurdles so that they can take more bite-sized pieces so that they can be just as successful and likely much more successful than we ever will.
Awesome. So you had come up with the blueprint for co-living. How can people find out more information about you?
Go to communitycoliving.com. You can reach out on both YouTube as well as Instagram at Real Deal David Ross. I also have Facebook. It's a big long number, so look in the notes. It will provide that as well. But we're in Hickory, North Carolina. We are buying a lot of properties right now and standing them up. We train property managers. We'll help coach. We're going to be moving into the multifamily space here in the next few months, where we'll take a part of the multifamily asset and start using it as co-living, because that increases the rent and that operating income. It significantly increases the value of the property, and it gives us a chance to impact so many more people in a really positive way because it doesn't cost that much more to provide a great housing experience. And our goal is not only to provide affordable housing, but also address the loneliness epidemic that is sweeping our country. And when people create community, when they interact with each other, they feel more fulfillment. They're not as lonely. They're not isolated as much, right? So there's huge value in living with other people. Even though our culture the last generation or so said, no, I need my own place. That's the definition of success. And now what's happened with social media and people look at their phones, they say, look at all my friends. And yet there's more loneliness in our country than ever before. I heard a stat recently that I think it was 60% of people in our country do not have one best friend.
I think I saw that one.
And the Surgeon General of the United States recently said loneliness in America today is like smoking 11 cigarettes a day. And so what if the definition of success for us is not in how many units we acquired, it's not in how much money we made, but what if we could look at the curve of anxiety, depression, suicide, dementia, cancer, disease, right? All these different things. And instead of it going up, and in 5 or 10 years, what if it starts to be back? And it starts to drop. To me, that is success. It's about collaboration over competition. It's about giving and sharing to make people better and more fulfilled and a more rounded life. So they can also then go and make a bigger difference to the people around them.
Absolutely. Invest in people so that, and also leave this world better than before we found it. I love that.
That concludes another episode of the Real Estate Path. If you got value from this episode from our guests, hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend who's also chasing the real estate dream. Most importantly, use what you learn and take action. I want to also make sure that you guys go check out his website and give him a follow. Now go out there, make some offers, build the life that you always dreamed of, and we'll see you in the next episode.